So to start, show of hands as you get settled, how many of you use AI in your personal life? That seems like most people, okay. How many of you use AI in your professional life? Okay. A lot of you again. How many of you like it? Okay, some people. How many of you fear a coming robot apocalypse? So just, okay, some of you, all right, cool. Well, what I'm hoping to that you take away from my talk today is a little bit of excitement around the part that we as humans can play in this crazy world we find ourselves in as AI continues to evolve and consume and become more and more a part of our lives. But to start off, that's me. I'm Josh. So I'm a senior UX designer at Indeed. And also one of the faculty members at AC4D. I teach the prototyping and testing class, which I have to tell you has changed pretty dramatically over the last couple of years. It used to be drawing on pieces of paper and paper prototyping, which is still important. But now the next step is very different, some of which we'll get into today. So let's start off and kind of level set. Let's talk about the state of the tech industry in 2025. So I will say, as a designer, this will be fairly design heavy, but I've tried to make it a bit more ambiguous and open to other folks that may be just using an AI or have some curiosity about how it's being used in tech right now. So the short version is AI is absolutely everywhere. 9 out of 10 designers are using it. I think that one designer is probably lying about it. Likewise, 9 out of 10 engineers, again, it's probably most of them. But the thing is, learning has been really unstructured, despite many adoption mandates out there. It's all self-taught, it's all self-directed. And success has been pretty inconsistent. A study came out a little while back from MIT saying 95% of AI initiatives in larger companies, AI pilot projects, have been unsuccessful in terms of increasing productivity. And then the success rate of AI tasks without human validation is under 50%. So not awesome, right? There's a gap. There's a critical thinking gap between what we tell AI to do and what it actually does. Companies are learning the hard way that AI without human intervention, without that human element, is just a mirage. It's just a robot trying to be more than a robot. It's very sad there. So I think the year 2025 was the year of AI extravagance. Everything needs to be AI. Let's shove it into everything. Let's have every company use it all of the time. And I think 2026 is going to be the year of AI accountability. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, figuring out what actually works and what can actually increase productivity or at least, push things further along. So let's talk a little bit about, what's working and what isn't working. So what's working? Well, you've probably heard the metaphor, the AI is the intelligent intern. It's quick, it's eager, it's at times sycophantic. It's pretty good at synthesizing information in obvious ways, and it'll do whatever you ask as many times as you ask it to do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have much context. It has constant amnesia. Just you have to constantly instruct it, hey, remember this, do this thing. And it gets a lot of things confidently wrong still. Now, I will say it's not 2022 anymore. A lot of people, I think, back then when GPT first came out, had their first impression of it as just a total liar. It's wrong all the time. It's not useful at all. Things have changed quite a bit. It has moved quite a bit further along than where it was then, but there are still issues. It's definitely not perfect. As you saw, 50%. That's not a high number in terms of success. It's also easier and easier as time goes on to run up against usage limits. A lot of companies, since there's a tremendous amount of expense and resource usage with AI, are starting to cut you off more and more if you're digging in. I hit it myself quite a lot with Claude, Claude Opus specifically, which I think is my favorite model right now. Very, very smart, but maybe 3 times a day I get to interact with it. It gets angrier and angrier as time goes on, and it just wants more and more of my money. I think that's just going to keep getting worse. As these things get more and more complex and require more and more energy, companies are going to have to start paying for that, and we as individuals, I think, are going to have to start paying for that as well. So there are some limitations. So how do you work well within those limitations? We'll talk a little bit about that today. Another thing you might commonly hear is the 80-20 principle, right? AI can get you 80% of the way there. But 80% of zero is still zero, right? The human element is just so, so important. So what is missing? Well, what's really missing is systems thinking and a true design process. AI optimizes for the mediocre, the median result. Slightly above 2025 average is what you typically get with AI. It's also optimized to be lazy. As I mentioned, the usage limits and all of that. It's lazy on purpose to optimize usage and expense because the harder it thinks, the more resource intensive it is. So it can be difficult to get to that correct answer, to get it to think as much as you'd like it to think, because it's, again, optimized to be lazy. So the bridge to that 100% from that 80% is the human touch. And I'd argue it's considerably more than 20%, but a common saying is a common saying. Our job as humans, interacting with this thing, especially if we're using it professionally, especially if we're designers, is to bring our perspective to the table, to coach it, to make that incredible result. If we are now seemingly more and more required to make it a part of our process, how do we get to a place where we're getting to that 100%? So your new role is as creative director. You are telling an army of robots how to create the thing that you want to create. You're working with those robots, you're directing them, you're telling them what to do, especially as we move more and more into the future and AI evolves further and further. So let's unpack that a little bit. So the product design process in an ideal world looks a little bit like this. Discovery, which is research, digging in, understanding the problem, framing the problem, learning things, on into creation, which is the actual design aspect, evaluation, testing, getting out there, understanding what's working and what's not, iterating, doing those first 3 steps until you get to a good place, and then delivering it on. That is, in an ideal world, what the product design process looks like. Where AI shines for that is in the details, the small details, crafting small but significant interactions, little spot designs, precise designs, content synthesis. Pattern recognition, it can be especially good. Say you're doing a set of usability tests or participant interviews, and you want to pull out a set of trends. What's working, what's not. Well, for the really obvious stuff, that's pretty simple for AI to read through those transcripts and pull out some of those insights. Still needs the human touch, but we'll get to that. And also ideation and creativity. So overcoming the blank page problem. What do I do first? Where do I start? AI can be fantastic for that. Just getting you out of your head and getting past that creative paralysis. So here, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I will be sharing this deck with all of you. Here's what works well kind of at a glance through all of those different areas. And that is as of today. And these are at the bottom, you can see of each section, a lot of the tools that I encourage you to explore and dig into a little bit more for these different pieces of the process, whichever is relevant to what you're doing or what you would like to explore. It's worth digging into some of those because there's a lot that it can do well today. All right, so what's not working well? Let's talk about that. So today you really have to, the common rhetoric is it speeds us up, right? It makes tasks faster, everything goes quicker, go, 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 go. That was the expectation for all these companies that pushed so hard to implement AI into all of our processes. The reality is not that simple, right? That 95% statistic. A lot of processes in companies, this can be personally, your life, but a lot of more complex things, bespoke new things, require you to slow down and really think through how you're going to execute these things. For net new functionality, things that are brand new at different companies that are specific to that particular organization, it can require significant time investments. So you slow down so you can go faster later on. A lot of that comes through in the initial planning and the strategy and how you roll these things out and work with them. Good examples are high quality design prototyping. A lot of AI can't work well with in-house design systems, different pieces that companies have put together that designers can pull from to put together different apps. AI still struggles with that. If you have a specific idea in your mind of how something should look, and you don't start from a picture and you start trying to coach the AI into making something like that, it's going to be a while to get it right. It'll go down crazy rabbit holes, and suddenly you've invested hours in something that was supposed to take a few minutes according to the hype. Another example would be a synthesis pipeline. So taking research transcripts, things you've learned, and turning that into insights, actionable insights. Getting something like that to work well and be relevant and actually give you relevant, good information, it takes a lot of time to get that together and to get it to work. So just a lot of scaffolding needs to go into place before that acceleration can happen. Another concern is also the echo chamber effect. It's really easy for generalizations and hallucinations to be socialized throughout the organization from AI. Used to be a problem with people, right? It's a thing that people used to do. There'd be an echo chamber, you'd be in a meeting, everyone kind of feeds off each other's energy, and suddenly, maybe things are suddenly going in a direction that maybe they shouldn't. Now everyone has that plus a robot that they individually are talking to, right? And all of our AI agents or AI models that we speak with, if it's just us interacting with it, which today in a lot of how it's built, it is, they will slowly but surely shape themselves to our needs, how we act, how we speak. And then picture a room, 10 people in a meeting, you're actually in a room with 20 people, right? But they're all robots. It's people plus robots. So the echo can just get crazy. And if you're not careful, as I mentioned, AI can take you down these different rabbit holes. If you're not constantly validating that the things you are learning are correct, that they line up with the actual insights that you're seeing, suddenly you are weeks down the road chasing this rabbit that maybe never existed in the first place. So regular validation, expert validation, early and often, it's non-negotiable. You just have to do it. And that's the expertise you as the human can bring to the table. So the two primary failure modes that we still see in AI today are around ambiguity and novel ideas. So AI struggles when true complexity is required. What do I mean by that? So it's good at little things. Supporting content, images, videos, audio, simple design tasks, small applications. Now what's interesting is this was true a few years ago as well, but it's dramatically different. We used to see these ridiculous AI images that were cobbled together, horrifying things at times. And of course, I think we've all seen a lot of the AI slop that's out there now with Sora and things like that. It's gotten better. It's gotten measurably and visually and obviously better in a lot of different ways. But when you come to true ambiguity, true complexity, those leaps of logic that we as humans bring to the table, it still struggles. So it's bad at high information density images. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those AI images where it tries to create text, but it's some language no one's ever seen before. Can't read it, it's just crazy. Complex user interfaces are still difficult for it. So, detailed interactions, especially for apps that are maybe specialized to a company, internal apps to that company, or in my business, of course, recruiters. Very specific workflow, very specific needs. When you get to that depth of complexity and the depth of the needs, the AI kind of throws up its hands and defaults to the mediocre, defaults to the training data. There are ways to mitigate that, and we'll talk through it. It's also pretty bad at end-to-end web or mobile apps. Now, it's definitely getting better at that, and there's strategies around that, but the level of complexity there to do that correctly and for AI to do it right, it's just not quite there yet. Now watch, I'll give this talk and next week a model will roll out and all of this stuff is fixed. It's usually how that works, but right now, today, on this Friday, this is where we're at. Another novel ideas, right? Thinking outside the box or outside the training data is difficult for AI. Now you can coach it, you can give it context, you can do your best to herd it in a direction you want to herd it, but as I mentioned, they're optimized to be lazy, and they are trained on the entire corpus of human knowledge, or Reddit, a lot of Reddit. They'll typically fall back to whatever is in their training data when things get hard, right? So it's good at usability related insights. So you can, one of the things that I've gotten a lot of use of in the last six months, maybe a year now, is you can paste. For me, I do a lot of visual design, so I'm often throwing screenshots in. What's working here? What's not working here? Or throwing a screenshot in and give me 5 variations or different directions of what this could be. It's great at things like that, but that's those simple design tasks, those simple explorations, right? Similarly, as I mentioned, usability testing. So you go out and you actually talk to 5 users, right? And you get that script of what's working. It's very easy to take that script, throw it into an AI, and surface some obvious insights. They didn't like the button. They didn't know what this text meant, the obvious ones. Now, it's no substitution for being in the room, talking to those people, being able to ask follow-up questions, and just developing that sense of the leap of logic that comes from actually speaking with people. But if you just want to know if the button works or not, it's pretty quick at that. Right, simple apps, simple bespoke apps. I have a single function I want to accomplish. It can be pretty good at that. And yeah, it's bad, as I mentioned, insights requiring leaps of logic. Logo design, I think, is another good one to talk about. I think we've all seen those really, I say terrible, but that's just because I'm incredibly judgy and I'm paid to have that judgment. You go out to an AI logo generator and you're going to get cookie cutter logos. It's going to be, just terrible stuff. The truly novel things, the truly novel logos, they still come from humans. So here's, again, another list. I encourage you to go through what is it not great at as of today. A lot of this is, navigating politics, navigating handoff designs across teams, the human element, building consensus. All of this is still important. The art of diplomacy is not something that AI has mastered. All right, so let's talk about where things are going next. So agentic AI. There, I think, are billboards in downtown Austin talking a lot about agentic AI. It's the current buzzword. But what does it mean? Well, it basically means the AI doing a thing for you. You tell it to go out and do a set of tasks, or honestly, an ambiguous task sometimes, and it will define that goal, it'll plan the steps, it'll evaluate it, it'll self-correct at times, you gotta tell it to do that sometimes, and then it'll actually deliver the result. So it'll go out, break down the tasks. Oh, you want a web page? Well, that's these 10 things. And it'll start executing those things. Pros and cons to this, right? It can often get out over its own skis and do a bunch of things very confidently that you may not have wanted it to do. We'll dig into that a little bit more. Right? So 88% increase in work completion speed, that's fantastic, oh my God. But the success rate is still 55%. That's not great, that's not great. So here are some early uses for agentic AI that you can do today. Targeted research, I do this a lot. As I mentioned, Claude, they really hammer me for that usage because I often will be curious about something and ask. Opus 4.1 is the one I use. There are several others. I'll ask it to go research something. And it used to be, it'd pull from the model data. Here's some information I have. Or it would go out and search a few web pages, and here's some results that I see. These days, you can go out and ask it a detailed, ambiguous question, very, very specific to whatever it is you want to learn about, and it'll go out and it'll cite 300 sources. It'll go out, it'll figure things out, and it'll deliver a research report bespoke to what you just asked it to do, and it'll take 20, 30 minutes doing all of those things. That's an example of agentic AI. It's putting together a plan for research. It's putting together what sort of deliverable, whatever piece of, whatever the report is, or a slide deck, or whatever you're looking for. It will come back and it will give you those things after doing all of those tasks. Another is bespoke personal tools. This one is actually, I think, my favorite right now. So this is great if you have just a silly idea. I actually have a pretty good example of this. In the last few weeks, my partner moved into a new apartment complex, and their parking system is trash. It's not good. It's just bad. I actually learned that lesson the hard way. I got towed because I didn't sign up for the thing. So I feel like sometimes, creatively speaking, spite can be great fuel. So when I want to park at her apartment complex, I have to go to a website. I have to type in her 7-digit code. I have to put in my license plate. I have to put in her name. I have to select the apartment complex. It's like 15 steps. It's a very slow app, poorly built, and it drives me crazy every single time. So I thought to myself, to hell with that. Let's see if I can write something that does that for me. So I pulled up Cursor, which is it's an agentic AI. It's more of like for engineering if you want to build an app. Now, I don't have a lot of background in engineering, but I do have a background in how I want things to work, right? So in 20 minutes, I fed it a set of screens. Fill this out, put this information here. Fill this out, put this information here. And within 20 minutes, I now have a script I can pull up on my computer, type it in, and it'll go out, go to the website. I don't have to do anything at all. It'll put my name in, put all the information in, and it'll come back, and I will have parking. So I think that, again, spite-fueled, but a good example of I have a crazy idea, and I want to solve this problem that I have. You are now empowered. If I wanted to do that 3 years ago, I would have to hire a team of people. I don't know. I would have to learn programming. I would have to go out. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Now, I could ask the chat GPT of back then, what do I do? And it'd lie to me about things probably. But today, I can have an idea and go from idea to functioning thing. It's not perfect. I would never put this out in public. I would never sell this thing because there are issues. But it does the simple, dumb thing that I want. And that's one of the things I hope I can impart to you today is that creativity is kind of unlocked. I paid $20 a month for Cursor right now. And it allows me to just make this thing that I want that would require so much more effort previously. And I think that's incredible. Again, a lot wrong with it, but if you have an idea, you can go very quickly from idea to here is a physical functioning thing if you know how to use these things. Another is travel planning. So I've done this a couple of times. A friend of mine is going to Japan soon, and you can go out and you can, I want a trip to Japan. I'm going to these 3 cities. Plan and book it for me. And there are tools out there that'll go through and it'll do all of those things. Now, when it comes to booking flights, booking hotels, all of these things, this I think is a great example of at a place where you'd want a human intervention baked into your interactions here, because suddenly it's spending your money and it's making plans for you, and now you have tickets to this thing. That can really get crazy, and there can be some mistakes there. I think that will be very interesting to see unfold over the next year, because that is where things are starting to go. A lot of websites are now optimizing their designs to handle agents, interacting with them, going out and buying things for you, and things like that. I personally am very curious to see how that ends up evolving. A lot of this stuff can seem miraculous or magical, but so much can go wrong if you're not careful when using it. I'll actually pause there. Has anyone used agentic AI or AI in an interesting way they'd like to share? Just me doing the crazy app? What you got?
I use it to get feedback on how to give feedback to people.
Oh, wow.
And I really like a nonviolent communication framework, which an actionable request. So I really like that framework, and I generally, before, when I'm high on emotions, something at work did not go well, I'm in a reactive mode. It helps me to calm down, tone down my message before I go to the person and say what's in my head on them, to tone it down and say it in a way that will get me the results I want.
I love that. That's really great. Anyone else have an example they'd like to share?
I do personalized learning. Like if there's something very specific I want to learn more about, I use these deep research features. And then there are also tools to convert those that research into something that is easier to digest, like a video or a podcast or something.
Notebook LM?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that one. Notebook LM is fantastic. If y'all aren't familiar, I encourage you to check it out. You feed a bunch of different context in. It can be PDFs, websites, whatever you like, just a topic you're wanting to explore. And like Carl mentioned, you can turn it into a podcast, a video. You can ask it questions about the information. And if it doesn't know the answer, it'll go out and continue doing that research for you. It's I think, very, very interesting for, I'm a very visual learner. So, listening doesn't typically work for me. Reading typically doesn't work for me. So being able to bridge that gap between, here is this form of learning that I've always kind of struggled with, and hey, now it can turn into this thing, it unlocks a lot, I think. It's really cool. Has anyone had AI go terribly wrong they'd like to share? Yes?
Well, I have. They say it helps you write and all, in Cloud you can put your stuff in. I put my stuff in. I have a very specific way of doing what I do. Put my stuff in and I'm like, okay, let's write this article, and as soon as I ask it to write an article, I get like mediocre stuff in the middle of my beautiful stuff. I'm like writing, I'm like, no, I'm like, what? Do not use anything, just the thing I want.
Yeah.
Could you just, and it cannot.
Yeah.
It cannot keep it, the lean startup is like in there, like, I'm like, okay, please, all of that needs, no, please don't, and it cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to watch it default back to its model, right? The knowledge that it's ingested. New stuff seems to challenge it. The leaps of logic, the insights, it just optimizes for mediocre, and also probably to save a little bit of money or save a little bit of I guess energy usage there. I also find it fascinating once you kind of go down that path a little bit with the AI, coaching it back is a nightmare. Like trying to get it back, like maybe you're fine with where it's at right here, right? And you want to go, okay, yeah, let's change this just a little bit, and suddenly it is in a crazy 90-degree direction. You can't get it back because there's no undo button, and you're trying to get it back, and then you look up and 30 minutes have passed, and you're yelling at a robot that doesn't care, and it's real happy about not caring. It can be a nightmare. Extrapolate that to engineering or design, and that's kind of the world we live in right now. It's a good example in my line of work as a designer would be Figma Make, which we'll talk a little bit more and experiment with here in a little bit. It's very good today at, rip off Spotify, and it'll just do that because it's looked at Spotify, it's looked at all the things. Or some of you may have seen a year or so back when they first rolled it out and then quickly wheeled it back. If you said create a weather app, it basically just made the Yahoo weather app. Like it's very confidently steals from the things that it has inside of it. So getting it to do things that are unique, it's very difficult to get it to go down that path. And then once you so my example at Indeed, we have our design system, we have very cohesive requirements that we have to hit to be able to push these designs out. You can select that image, pull it into Figma, and start interacting with it. Okay, we'll make it, take away this element, or add this thing, or this and that. But once again, it can default to its corpus of knowledge, the models it's trained on, and suddenly, this doesn't actually happen, but as an example, suddenly you half Indeed, half Spotify, oh my God, get it back, let's reel it back. It's very, they're just so excited, these agents, to go down the wrong path. and it can be challenging to rein them back in. So some tips for fixing with that. Nothing is perfect, but this is what I found works pretty well, is crafting your prompt very carefully. And we'll unpack this in a little bit. I've actually found, strangely, your example with Claude and the writing and all of that, I have found that if I'm doing a task similarly to that, and I start out and I have put my prompt together and maybe I haven't thought a whole lot about it, and I plug that in and it starts doing its thing, if I start trying to negotiate with it, instructing it back in a different direction, it's very difficult to get it to ignore the biases that it first jumped to when you started interacting with it. So I've often found it's easier to just start over. Rethink your prompt just a little bit, new tab or what have you, new conversation, or in an agent's or Figma Makes case, like new design, and then think through the prompt a little bit more deeply, plug that in, and then all those biases aren't there anymore because it has, built-in amnesia, right? You're starting from scratch with that. But it comes back to, I think everyone thought the phrase prompt engineer was pretty funny a year or two back when it started being a thing. But it's still so important. I imagine that'll change over time, but as it is today, if you want these things to work well, prompt creation is arguably the most important piece. Next, ensure it creates a plan. Now, when I built that spite-filled app for the parking garage situation in Cursor, one of the things I've had a lot of luck doing, because again, it's a lot of us are self-taught with this stuff. We're just kind of like stumbling around in the dark trying to figure it out ourselves. One of the things I learned worked very well is have it put together a plan for you. Not think about it and then execute, but task it directly with how would you approach this specific task. Break it out for me, tell me all the steps you're going to take. And then take a second to review that plan and make sure everything's good, and then have it do the thing. You're still going to need to check that the work was okay, but having it create that plan is, I think, really, really helpful in terms of ensuring it's doing the right thing. Which brings me to being the human in the loop. This, I think, is, and I'm going to keep underscoring this because it's the point of the talk, being that human in the loop is so important. So embedding manual checkpoints, making sure that the robot checks in with you often so you can direct it and make sure it's on the right track. I've also had some success playing the models off of each other. So in the example of Cursor, though you can, in Cursor it's a little drop down, so you can go from like GPT-5 to one of the Claude ones or what have you. Having it do some tasks and then hopping to the other model and just say, verify that everything that just happened is correct. And 9 out of 10 times it'll find something that went slightly wrong and fix it. But you can do that for everything, really. I've had a lot of success having, say, Google Gemini write a prompt for something I want to feed into GPT, right? Or go vice versa, or like check the answers against each other. But using the models to craft prompts for themselves, and then playing the results of what one model said off of the results of what another model said to just fact check it. It sounds like a lot of work or like crazy, but it actually is a great shortcut that gets you quite a long distance towards quality. It's like it has a little bit of a built-in cheat code for itself if you know how to ask for it. Does anyone have any other tips they'd like to share for interacting with AI that's worked well for them?
Do you ever put in your original prompt tell it to fact check itself before it provides answers? Like sometimes I do that, and then also I do what you mentioned earlier, which I just lost in my train of thought, but where I usually have it ask me questions. I prompt
Yes.
it to ask me questions to clarify if it needs any clarification before it provides its response.
That's a big one. That's great. I'm glad you called that out. Because it's the confident liar problem, right? Even if it doesn't, and a lot of them have the thinking where they surface it to you now, which I think is really fascinating. Oh, thinking through this, he wants this answer, da 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 da. And you can, if you pay attention to that, see where they're getting things very wrong. Like, oh wait, no, I didn't want you to do that, but it's too late. Now you got to go back and undo it. Having it say, if there's anything you don't understand, ask me clarifying questions is huge. because then, typically it'll come back, okay, I want to know these 3 or 4 things. That can also be helpful when you're having it create a plan. If you get it in the mindset, I've found, mindset, such a strong word, if you get it to go down the path of creating a plan, often it'll ask you clarifying questions, some of them. Do you want it to go this way? Do you want it to go that way? And I think that bit of interaction to clarify things can get much, much better results. You haven't gone yet.
I was just gonna say, I usually will tell it what I'm, over-explain what I'm thinking. So if I'm trying to think of this title of this thing, because I do learning design, so for learners, sometimes I'll be like, I'm afraid this is gonna come across this way, this is what I have so far, and this is where they're coming from. So I sort of just kind of really overly explain what my issue is with the thing that is being presented, and then they'll be like, oh, be very complimentary, be like, oh my god, great. But that is helpful because then it will kind of take a different angle than it would if you just asked it, can you rename this to be more simple or something like that.
Yes.
She brings up a good point. Is I always also say, don't just agree with me. Give me your honest opinion.
Yeah. So I actually learned this recently. It's been a thing in GPT for a minute. I'm not sure if many of the other ones have it, but you can set the personality. And 5.1 rolled out a couple of days ago. There's one in there, I think it's called efficient. It used to be called robot, but now it's called efficient. If you do that, it doesn't praise you as much. It's just a robot doing a thing, which I love. I don't want to pretend it's human. That's a little much for me. Though I hear you hear those reports of people that start worshiping it. I kind of want to see that. I kind of want to, is there a way to get my AI to do that? I haven't found that yet, but I'm very curious about it, Anyone else? Either you? You first.
Yeah, on the point of mastered art of instructing AI, I have found that AI is really good at instructing AI. So I will start with almost like a stream of consciousness, and then I will ask it to create a prompt based on that stream of consciousness, and then I use that prompt, and you don't have to write anything at all. You can just be creative.
Yep. No, that's a great one. I've also found, so a lot of my work is visual, of course. So feeding in, if I have a specific question, feeding in not just here are some stray thoughts I have, but imagery. Here are the things I'm working on. Take a peek at that, and it can actually read the text on the images now and all of that, and then have it do the prompt crafting step. Then it's got a crazy amount of context, and it can start from there. And yeah, it also makes you feel a little bit smarter, I think, because that is what I was saying.
Well, you might be using more pro tools than, more. But when I learned yesterday, I was learning stuff about AI yesterday. And one of the things I learned from a speaker, he said, the context is incredibly important, but there is this place where it starts to get less and less intelligent. Toward, there's some tipping point and it's less and less intelligent. And so if you put in too much context, then it doesn't have a lot of brain left to do the actual work, and at some point you keep asking it things, and it's it can't. And then, so what he recommended was, so have it at some point, stop before that happens, have it summarize what you're doing, and then start again with another chat. Fresh brain. But so sometimes too many, in Claude I have all these things, too many, it can't do anything. And I'm oh, it doesn't work, it's not smart, but I don't think I'm using it right.
No, I think you're using it exactly right, because I run into that myself, as I mentioned, and I will continue complaining about until it stops being a thing, I guess, or I decide to pay $100 a month. That's never going to happen. Claude Opus, which is my favorite, it's a lot of back and forth. It has trouble keeping a lot of context, as you mentioned. And that's just, say, the length of the conversation. So you go back and forth with it, having it clarify things, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The longer it gets, the more usage you're actually consuming, the more tokens you are feeding in to the model to get results back. And to your point, the summarizing, I've had some success, say if I want to get a second opinion from a different model, having it summarize, all right, what are the takeaways from everything you've recommended, pull it out in a bulleted list, and then I actually will indicate that I want to use it for another model or another LLM, and then it'll synthesize and break it down into something that another model can easily consume. And then typically what happens is like, heck, I'm running out of usage, summarize it, all right, over to one of the other ones I have some time left on. Okay, well, you're not as good, but you're fine for now. I guess I'll wait for a few hours and come back to that, and then I'll do that. I'll interact with this other model if it's something I'm really trying to solve hard. And then when I get usage back on this other one again, I'm like, okay, now summarize this for another model, and then I'll, hey, old friend, all right, let's keep going. And you can jump back and forth like that. But yeah, it's such interesting tools. All right, speaking of interesting tools, let's get a little active with this thing. So I'm going to have you all do an exercise now. Who has laptop? Who does not have laptops? Let's raise your hand. Does everyone have a laptop? Oh my gosh, amazing. All right, so let's everyone bust out our laptops and try some agentic AI. All right, so as a first step, what I'd like you all to do, if you don't have an account on one of these three, it is entirely your choice. All of them have free tiers. Figma Make, Lovable, or Magic Patterns. Whichever one sounds most interesting to you, Google that, sign up for an account. So some of you are faster than others. But when you find yourself at a prompt screen ready to type something in, what I'd like you to do is think of an app you know well, something you find very well designed or innovative, something you think is interesting. And then using the prompt window, try and recreate that app. I'm not going to give you instruction yet. We're going to do another round of this after we talk through prompt design. But using that prompt window on one of these three services, type in whatever you think will get you close to that app that you'd like to recreate. There's no wrong answers. Have it create a first pass, and then do that first pass, see what it comes up with. It's going to take a little time, and then tweak it a little bit if it's not quite there. That make sense to everyone? All right. Okay, how'd that feel? Anyone want to talk about their experience with that? Weird, cool, crazy, boring, what do we got? Anyone? Anyone want to share their experience of how that felt, being able to turn text into something you can interact with? Sure, thank you, save me.
Yeah, so I just had to recreate a Nordstrom website just to see what it would come up with and dresses. And it came up, it was very simple though, like it was not, but it did do a good job. Like it did do a good job. I asked it to do like a details page afterwards, and it actually was clickable then, so I could click on any of the clothes and it would go to the details
Very
page.
cool.
So it actually did do a flow, like a clickable flow within here.
Which one did you use?
I did Lovable.
Lovable, yeah. I found Lovable can get a little more complex, a little faster in terms of what it can do. But it also spends credits like crazy for that. So
Yeah, I don't know, like 1.5
pros and cons.
credits, I have no idea what that means.
They definitely like limit you in terms of what you can do to get you to sign up for that subscription. But the power of it can sometimes be worth it depending on what you want to do. All right, let's flip this on its head a little bit. Come on, buddy.
It's thinking.
Oh, there you go. There we go. All right, let's riff on what we just created. So let's try a few simple prompts that dramatically change things. So I don't know, make this look like late 90s web design, or design this how Disney would, or recreate this in Apple style. Just do something crazy, something that would change it pretty dramatically, just to see what happens. What I wanted you all to see with that exercise is it probably changed a bunch of things you didn't expect it to change, right? In Sebastian's case, he had Amazon changed to what was it, 90s web design? And it changed the name to Retromart, it changed all the colors, it changed a lot of the imagery. So it's very unpredictable what changes when you give it something so vague as make it a little different. I wish I still had it up, I would love to show you, but I was messing around with it last night and had it recreate Spotify, and it did it perfectly. And then I had it make it My Little Pony themed, and it changed everything insanely. There were sparkling hearts, it was chaos. As an exercise, though, I tried to get it back to where it was, and it was impossible. There was no undo. I could have clicked revert, but try as I might, I was burning through credits. Okay, get rid of the hearts. All right, less ponies. This is crazy. Like, could not get back to Spotify.
What if you just say go back?
You can do that with some of them. Figma Make, I think you can. Lovable, I'm not sure if you can. It's give and take with some of them, the different capabilities. Please.
What did you just say?
Oh, I asked, like, what if you just told it to go back?
If you told it to go back, it'll kind of lose its mind. Yeah, because it does so much. I mean, you saw it building out different things, changing different things, making a plan. It does so much that telling it to go back makes its head explode because that's so much context, that's so much it has to do. Please.
That's what I was going to ask for this because I haven't used these before to like create actual like designs and things. But is there like versions like where you can like go back
Yes.
to version 1, 2, 3?
Yes, with some of them, I think some of them have it and some of them don't. I believe Figma Make does. Yeah. Sorry.
Google Whisk has a few like.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That would suck if you were like, I
Right.
really like this, I just want to tweak it a little, then it goes.
Yeah,
away.
exactly. And that.
Still tweaking it still.
Yeah, that's the risk, is you can find yourself chasing your tail a little bit. You can say, I don't know, change this button color to green. Suddenly the logo's different, everything's a little change. Like some of these things, like it's still, as you saw, 50% success rate. What I wanted you to see there is how little control you really had. I'm sure you all saw, like even if you were super specific in your prompts, I'm sure there were some things that you just weren't expecting, that it made leaps of logic, going in a different direction, changed some things up. That speaks to crafting that plan and ensuring that it knows what to do and having that prompt up top be very, very specific. Now, I know some of you are like expert prompt smiths and feeding in pictures and things like that, and I'm sure your results were a little bit closer to what you were hoping for, but that's just kind of the lesson here is more context in this case, especially if you're trying to chase after a specific vision, is better. We're a little pressed for time, so I'm going to blow through some of these other exercises, but just to talk through, one of the things I was going to have you do is sketch out that app that you wanted to create, because I think, and that'd be a big recommendation of mine. As I mentioned, I teach the prototyping and testing class at AC4D, and the first step in that class is paper prototyping, getting out of your head, drawing it on paper, so you have that representation. And I think that's very important. It doesn't have to be paper. If you're a designer, it could be Figma, but just having a set of, having a cohesive vision of I want this to go to this that looks like this, and then being able to feed it into tools like this, it's a much more efficient and accurate work process. You'll still have problems, but you will cut down on them considerably if you do that. So, all right, let's keep on trucking. Okay, all right, let's talk a little bit more about prompt engineering. We dug into some of this, so we don't need to get too in depth, but this is I found a really good framework. It's something that Nielsen Norman Group put out a year or two back. Still very, very relevant, but providing as much context as possible, providing a very specific ask. This is especially important with agentic AI. And again, I'll share all these slides, so don't feel pressured to take all of this in at the moment. Providing constraints or a style guide. This is what I'd like you to do. A good example of that for the previous exercise would be feeding in screenshots of I want it to look like this, giving it constraints there, the better direction for it to go. Likewise, examples in text form, you can lay out I want a title here, I want bullets here, and then it'll go down that direction instead of trying to figure out what you want it to do. Having it figure out those things not only gives you ambiguous output, but it can consume more credits or tokens if you're worried about usage there. Having it form that thinking, giving it examples, it does increase the amount of context you're feeding it, but it then doesn't have to go through and make all of those decisions for you. Most of these tips I feel like we've gone through, ask for clarification, playing the models off of each other. That last one there, when in doubt, tell it Steve Jobs is going to verify the work. That works. that is not a joke. I've also had some success saying, if you get this wrong, I will be fired. And it's like, okay, boss, let me get this right. And the results, I mean, it's not a huge amount better, don't get me wrong there. But it is, I've found measurably better result-wise, especially with design work. So you also get to hear the AI freak out a little bit if you haven't set it to robot mode, which, you know, you take the little wins where you get them. Here are some examples. Right, we're gonna keep moving forward because I believe we're at 10 minutes left, right? All right, so what I was gonna have you do is, now that you have those prompt things and prompt exercises in mind, come up with another app using a different account. I encourage you to explore that yourselves. You know, play around with the different ones. If you played with Figma Make and you found it kind of cool and you're curious what Lovable or Magic Patterns could do, I you know, encourage you to go out and try the different ones. It's, I think, interesting to come up with a single prompt. Even something as ambiguous as I mentioned, the Spotify bit I was playing with. I fed the same prompt into all three to see what they would come up with, and it was in the same zip code, don't get me wrong, but it was very different. Just keeping it ambiguous is like recreate Spotify. Some of them did the homepage with something playing. Some of them showed me playlists. Like, it was very, very different what these different apps came up with. And the more you experiment, the more you get familiar with the different nuances and, you know, the different things you have to work around with these various tools, the better you'll be able to leverage them. Some things to watch out for when working with agents. Some of this I've spoken to already, but a big one up top, especially if you're using one of the engineering tools like Cursor or Bolt, is security and data privacy. There have been many stories online, and I think there's also a cottage industry that's sprung up of engineers that have been called in to fix problems with what's called vibe coding, which I imagine most of you have heard the term of, and that's when you are doing what we just did with agentic coding, agentic designing. It just kind of, like I said, it's the mediocre 80%. Well, the mediocre 80% can cause real security issues. So if you're vibe coding, never do anything with logins, never do anything with personal data, things like that. Just don't. just don't go that far with it. Bias amplification is another one. So any sort of bias that is present in our society is going to be present in the models. So that can be amplified in the models if you're not careful. Unintended actions, that's a big one. That's the human in the loop bit I was talking about. Just make sure you build in a step of check in with me. I was telling the story of the parking garage app that I made. Turns out that you can only, I thought to myself, I'll just run this every day. I'm not over there all the time, but like free parking every day sounds awesome. You can do 7 per month at most before it starts costing money. So I started, after a week or two, I just let this thing do its thing. Oh, why did I pay $25 to this company? So just be careful what you have these robots do, or things can kind of creep up on you. And yeah, lack of explainability. That app I built, if you asked me what it does, I could tell you. If you asked me how it does it, could not tell you. Have no idea. I could probably sight read it to some degree, but that's a very big thing to keep in mind, is some of these things are kind of a black box. You don't know exactly how it's doing some things. You don't know exactly why it's doing some things. So just keep that top of mind as you're playing around with them. And underscoring again, human oversight is non-negotiable. There are very real, very widely recognized risks. This is out in public as you use it personally. This is especially important internally at organizations that encourage you to use AI. Things can get out of hand very quickly, and it's just you gotta keep some things top of mind. As I mentioned, the echo chamber earlier, so avoiding socialization of hallucinations or false data. If you're a researcher or you're interested in doing research, that's a big one. The human in the loop, the human part of it it's non-negotiable. It's just part of it. So okay, you've played around with these different agentic tools, creating designs. What would be the next step? How would you test this idea? How would you ensure that it's a good idea? The old-fashioned way, honestly. It's still good. It's tried and true. There is no replacement for it. Usability testing. So going out there, interviewing 3 to 5 participants, 5 gets used to statistical significance, and ask them questions about what's working and what's not. And that's a picture of one of my students from a few years ago doing, having a conversation with someone with paper prototyping apps. And 5 conversations got her to a place where she realized, oh, I need to change this. I need to move this around. I need to make these changes here. And she just spent time drawing those things. Now that you have the power of going out to one of these tools and saying, create this app that does this thing, you can pull that up in any browser and go and approach people at a coffee shop and say, what do you think about this? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Or just strike up a conversation and get feedback from folks on what's working, what's not, and then take that, use that information, and iterate, make it better, change it up. Because there's nothing that can replace talking to actual human beings. A little inside baseball, Indeed just did a study on synthetic users. So feeding in a huge amount of context, research data, basically everything we could get our hands on, we had internally around, specifically in our case, recruiters, employers, hiring managers. And we did a study on synthetic users. Can they replace talking to actual humans for generative research? Now, generative research is going out into the field, learning what the needs of these users are, and then using that information to get insights, spark ideas, potentially come up with new products or solutions, generate new ideas. The answer is no, absolutely not. It was a total failure. It will always hallucinate to some degree. So things like usability testing, as I just mentioned, you can get the big trends, like the obvious, this button is not working, things like that can still work to some degree, but humans are way better. Talking to humans, way better. So keep that robot sad in the distance. When it comes to things like that, there's nothing that beats human connection. So how to keep up with this stuff? There is a one of my favorite things, or one of my favorite stories to tell is in the Alice in Wonderland book, there's a character called the Red Queen. And she tells Alice that to stay exactly where you are, you have to run as fast as you can. And that to me has been what being a designer is and has been for the last 10 years. Always learning new tools, things inevitably change, your job description can change from year to year. To me, that's always been kind of fun. It can be chaotic, it can be a lot, but endless curiosity can be a very, very good core skill to strengthen. So if you're interested in going down this path, one thing to embrace is continuous adaptation. Things will keep changing, things will keep evolving. This will likely be out of date within 3 to 6 months, maybe a couple weeks, who knows? This stuff moves so quickly and it moves very exponentially. But if you embrace it, if you embrace things like, hey, now I can type in some sentences into this platform and create a cool app that I can talk to people about, and within 20 minutes of I have this idea, I can have something to run by people, that's a lot of power that we didn't have a year ago to test cool ideas. And it just takes, learning how to learn, being willing to keep growing, keep adapting, keep picking up new skills, and stay curious. And my call to action for you, be Be that irreplaceable 20%. Be the human in the loop. Make it more than 20% if you can. Your human mind is the ultimate creative director. Any questions? Thanks.